Hi everybody, I'm Jeff, and thanks for having me. So today is my epic story and some techniques for surviving as a graying gay person in tech. I've worked in tech for about 35 years now, and before that, alternative newspapers. So I was always interested in changing the status quo through media. And I associated myself with organizations that I thought at least accepted who I was. When there was discrimination, it was often subtle. But thanks to some early activism, I was always reactive first. Sorry, mean people. I survived with a technique I've come to call the humanist plus activist approach. Here's how it works and why it's more important than ever today. If you haven't noticed, blatant harassment and discrimination is filling the news cycles today. We're in a dangerous political environment. Those in power today are turning back the clock on many gains in civil rights. I read just yesterday that our vile so-called president was joking about lynching gays. Seriously. This thinking is becoming normalized and will bleed into the workplace, and discrimination will become even more okay. This may be hard, but before you react, I'm okay, thanks. Take some time to understand the experiences and the point of view of the people you interact with. That's the humanist part. You do, however, have a right to be at the table without discrimination. Don't ever back down. That's the activist part. So from the humanist side, here are some signs that you can look at. There's this subtle uneasiness in the room. You can always tell that something is off, but you can't put your finger on it. That's when understanding that other people matter. And there's still a lot that goes unstated. You can almost hear it. He's old and doesn't get it. Gay people are different. I'd rather not know about that thing I don't understand, or we don't have anything in common. It's the same thing we see in polarized politics today. Nobody is listening or understanding the others outside of their own bubbles. Many times, what is going on doesn't even have anything to do with you. And that's why it's important to know if you can tell the difference. Through protege and mentoring relationships, you can get to know each other, and you can both benefit and find the common ground, especially when it's related to ageism. Now the activist stance, and this is a little more complex. When I look back about 40 years ago, my influences were usually older artists and writers and activists that had been through the Vietnam War resistance. They were my teachers, and that classroom was a little challenging. I worked for a lefty newspaper in Santa Barbara, and there was a lot that was good that was being done by keeping many of the good guys at bay and staying defiant. But believe me, the internal workings to make that happen were as antagonistic as what was being published at the other end of that. I was also present for some of the early meetings for ACT UP. It was the radical organization that stood up to the AIDS epidemic in the early 80s. The meetings were held in the basement of the Gay and Lesbian Center in Greenwich Village. And I mean, they were wild and passionate, shouting matches that got to the very best of the people to fight what was becoming an epidemic. As they say, we went through it to get to it. But these experiences illustrated to me how similar tactics could be brought to new challenges. It established my response to discrimination. To address AIDS, for example, we broke all the furniture in the room so that we could be heard. We challenged the government, the Catholic Church, the drug companies. We made everybody uncomfortable so that we could be heard. We had zero tolerance, and we questioned everything. At the same time, we were emotionally beaten and grieving from the relentless death around us. And then we had to get on with things. In the middle of all that resistance and that morning, those of us that did survive were gathering ourselves up and starting our careers with a group of peers that had radically different experiences. That activist bent stuck for me and was an uncomfortable stance to bring into the workplace. Certainly one that didn't resonate with a lot of people in the room, who may have only been getting away with keeping people marginalized before. So that's a conflict by definition. We were ready to fight for what was right, but we had a tendency toward empathy and tenderness. So now, here's a new form of discrimination for me. It's age. My friend Karen Wickery recently wrote in Wired magazine, the very people who might be affected by age discrimination often don't want to bring it up, especially in Silicon Valley. Boy, did she get that right. With something fairly new to me like age discrimination, I can miss these signals, and it seems nobody wants to hear it anyway. I know that there are plenty of signs that our industry is not considering the value that age and experience bring to an organization, and often it's not an easy topic to broach. So let's talk action. If you find yourself losing power due to discrimination, you need to stop it in its tracks. Maya Angelou said, if you let a bird nip at your ear, before you know it, your whole head will be gone. You get it? As discrimination incrementally goes unchecked, what was questionable before becomes normalized. The toxicity is multiplied. So stop it. When you see it, stop it. You can first try with compassion and grace, but don't back down if that doesn't work. Understand your boundaries, let them be known, or the bird will eat your head. So I'll wrap this up with the following. Try to find some common ground with the people you work with. They're going to be coming from different experiences and different points of view. If you do that, it will provide some context and a little humanity when you're observing behaviors and interacting. And from the activist side, don't kid yourself. The assaults on our rights are more aggressive than we've seen in decades. This is becoming the new normal again, and it requires vigilance in calling it out. Working in tech means that we're creating the platforms for the future, and with that comes a responsibility. If there's humanity and an adherence to principles in the room, it will translate into the products we create. Thank you.